Good. All right. Let me see. Welcome everybody to it's May 9th. Durham.
There's always one.
Yeah, it's always one more crowd. Durham Select Board meeting. We have a full quorum here tonight. Everybody's present, and we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Let's see. We have any amendments to the agenda this evening? Hearing none. We'll move on to public comment. We have anybody here for public comment this evening? Lois? We have no microphone for you, though.
I'll shout.
Yeah, we can shove one,
Thanks,
put
Josh.
one over there for you. There you go.
So I'm only going to take about 30 seconds because I've basically introduced myself to Mr. Tom already, and I think I know everybody else. But so I just have been asked by the Historic District Commission to attend some of your meetings so that we can share information, so that we can collect information, so that we're all on the same page with the historic resources, sorts of things that go on in town. So, and I should have said, I'm Lois Kilby Chessie. I live on Runaround Pond Road. So I'm here, and I sent you an email yesterday, which I made a copy of and dropped at your seats before you got here. So if you have any questions anytime along the way, you can call me or email me. Just don't use the durhammaine.gov email because it doesn't work for me. So I have a Gmail, which I have used in the office, so they have that. So, and certainly anybody else that's on the commission's happy to answer your questions as well. So, and I thank you for all the work that you do. It's nice to have a full board here tonight, but besides that, it's nice to have people who are interested in historic resources. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lois.
Can I just say one thing about Lois's email? I just wanted to let you know that in that first email that you sent, you said that it bounced back to you. We did actually get that email.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the reason, well, the first one, just to explain, I got a bounce back message. But the reason is because on a cell phone, there's a dash between Durham and Maine.
Okay.
And I put it in the address when I put it out there. So good. I'm glad you got it twice. I
Yes.
apologize
Yep,
for that.
No, that's okay. I just
I've
wanted
done
you
that to
know
the
we did
codes
get it.
officer before too, where he's gotten like 6 copies of things. So, yes, thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you, Lois.
Oh,
Appreciate
I
it.
see. Thanks.
Val,
Thank you.
sorry, we have to fix the camera right now.
Technical
It's pointed at
difficulties,
the
folks.
ceiling.
Delay a game.
Yeah.
Won't be any instant replay tonight.
You think one of them must work, right?
There's only one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, let me see. I guess I have to go back in.
We do have voice, though.
Can it be clamped over the top of the TV if you unravel the wire?
Don't follow. We'll have to
Any
call
zip
the
ties?
chief back.
I gave them to you.
I might have some in my trunk.
There you go.
I'm gonna check online, it just still split point of ceiling still.
It might be a little bit delayed.
All right. Good enough for government work then. Great.
Okay, it's better at the front or?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on right up.
Still in the 5-minute or whatever.
Yep, public comment. Come on right up.
I'm Stephen with a PH Jarman, Jarman. I live on Shiloh Road. Been here for 2.5 years. And my wife is Valerie. She's a medical practitioner. I'm retired from manufacturing many years. And we just live on a little tiny farm. Happy to be here and happy to see this board up and running and functioning very well. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. That's all I'm doing here is just kind of get to know governance. And some of the topics might be of interest. I did talk to Tia the other day. I called her. Is that someone you know?
So she's the Historical Society, which
Society.
is different than the,
Different.
than the Historic District Commission, but yes.
Okay, well, thanks
yeah,
for
we work
clarifying that.
together.
So I just volunteered. I didn't say I wanted to, spend a lot of time, but I do want to know about history, and that's a good way. I know that there's some transitioning going on. So I've got two medical hips. I can't do a lot of lifting, but I might be able to help do some organizing. Spend some time there.
Great.
That's about it.
All right, Stephen, nice to meet you. Welcome to town. All right, no more public comment? Public comment is closed. Josh, you look like you,
I was just gonna ask Lois if she was gonna stick around a little bit.
I am, my
Sure.
name's on the agenda, whenever
Yeah.
my name's on an agenda, I'm gonna stick around, because I'm gonna find out what's being said.
all right, so we'll move on to old business or previous business. So I know there was a discussion in my absence about the GP cog delegates. Seems like GP cog is really wants us to have a couple people show up at their meeting on May 25th. So I guess I would probably take a motion for anyone who would like to actually attend or be delegated as one of the delegates. I'm not sure you have to show up on May 25th, but it seems like it's going to be a pretty good summit.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being a delegate with you, but I can't make the May 25th. I have an out of town commitment
Yeah.
for work. So, I mean, unless it's competitive and someone else wants it, but it seems like they followed up in one. Competitive within the board.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to take anything from chances,
Don't want to take that spot from anybody.
but I mean,
I think that was a volunteer.
Yeah,
That sounded like volunteer, yeah.
it's a volunteer. I mean, it's pretty much a volunteer thing. So like I said, I am more than willing to do it. And I don't mind, and I can make myself available on May 25th and go down and see what this is all about.
Joe, would you like to be named a delegate also?
yeah, that's what I was saying. Is if they
Okay.
want two,
So
we're
do you
gonna send
wanna-
one. We might as well tell them we have two, but I won't be able to make that.
I
meeting.
think they only have the meeting once a year. I
Yeah.
don't know of any other time
Yeah.
the delegate would be required if they're not able to make that meeting.
Don't know how much.
I have no problem with it, but voting John in or not is not probably gonna be doing anything for anybody if you can't make it.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean too. Is I
I
can't make
wasn't,
it.
I wasn't, I wasn't, unless they get a big money windfall, we'll go down to the meeting a little more often.
I've only known them to call us once a year.
So the
Okay.
question that I had about this, are we discussing? We don't have a motion
Yeah,
yet.
while we, if we want to discuss, I haven't heard any motions yet, so. we
Okay.
can- Go ahead, keep this.
Talk or no?
Go ahead, talk, yeah.
Okay. One of the questions that I had was that I got an email from GPCOG
Mhm.
welcoming me as a select board member and whatnot. And one of the things that I noticed was that it said that grant money, federal grant money was distributed through them for Cumberland and York County.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to have a better understanding of why we would be part of GPCOG versus the Androscoggin County one. Would we be eligible for grant money through GPCOG because we're not in Cumberland or York County?
Yeah, we got grant money.
We got grant money from them.
Okay, so it's not only obviously only limited to Cumberland and York
I think
County.
it's its members that are allowed to access the grant money.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we are, I'll say competing, but we are competing with the whole southern part of the state and tied in with those guys instead of the northern part of the state here. Yeah, I think that's just the way, it's been that way for quite a while, if I remember correctly, a number of years now that. You know, GPCOG.
Yeah, we've always been with GPCOG because we do, for lack of better words, we kind of do business with like Calvin in particular, where they do bidding and so
The
forth
salt
for like
and
salt
sand,
and sand.
yeah.
Not sand, they don't do sand.
No.
We do that locally, but they do salt and things of that nature.
I mean, I think it makes sense, like even for the RSU, because 2 out of our 3 RSU towns are part of Cumberland County. I just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't be in a situation where we're excluded from that because it specifically stated Cumberland and York.
They treat us just like every other municipality.
Okay.
that
Yeah,
belongs
this, like, we've never, since my tenure, I don't believe anybody from this board has ever thing, but it's like, it's kind of like us too. They delegate maybe people, they might delegate like a chairman or something of that nature, and then they hold their annual meeting, present their minutes from the year, probably go over their budgets and what they're going to try to accomplish, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, that's what it seemed like.
But you still get irregardless if you go or don't go, you still get the benefits because we are a member of GPCOG. So we are included if we want to opt in with their, sometimes even have fuel price, all kinds of stuff that they do for us. It's like a
And-
co-op type thing.
And I didn't bring it with me, but they gave a big 11 by 17 spreadsheet of all the towns and what programs they were involved in, and a lot, some of those are what Calvin's involved in, and other things that are going on in town. We do get grant money or monies from them, or advice or
Okay.
from them, so.
Okay.
All right, do we?
I'll move that Joe and Joe be delegates and Heather be the alternate. Because I thought that was,
Do it.
Well, I had said that I was available if needed to go that day, so I'm happy to be named an alternate, and then we can talk about it if we want to do that.
That's
But
fine. Do we have a second?
So I second the motion.
Second motion, Joe. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? And we have that's a move.
I was in favor.
We're moving on that motion. That's 5-0.
So who are the delegates again?
Joe
Joe
and
and
Joe.
I, and Heather's an alternate.
Joe,
Joe, and
And-
Heather's.
And I'm planning on going, and
I don't think,
Am
I
I-
have to check my work schedule because I think I'm out of town.
Nope,
that day,
that's
but,
fine. I just so we have the two names. I think they were really
yeah.
hungry for names.
Joe made the motion. Who seconded?
No.
Josh made the
Josh
motion.
I second.
Yep, all right.
Got it,
Josh made
got
the
it.
motion,
Okay.
Joe seconded
I
it.
got a little confused there. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right,
Not that it matters. Joe's taking notes.
all right. New business, fire department rapid response vehicle bid results. Chief, you'd like to join us up here?
Upon opening bids, I sent out 5 bids for the rapid response vehicle, at least 5. I got one back, and I'm 2,214 short to purchase it. It's on the lot. It's in Wiscasset. It's a Ford. It's an F-350 with a utility body. It's red. 7 months ago, I had to come up with sort of quotes, and we're talking automotive, so they'll only quote you for 7 days, not 7 months. So it wasn't in good faith, and then that's what they have on the lot, that type of stuff. So again, I only got one back. The committee across the way decided that this is the perfect vehicle for the fire department. Not fancy, but it'll work and it'll continue for 15 plus years. You can convert the back because it's a utility with the 3 sides. You could make a brush truck out of it because it's a 1-ton, that type of stuff. So we'll have it perpetual. So tonight I'm here, but plus I'm shy of outfitting it with lights. You need a siren lights, that type of stuff, and that adds up. So I'm asking for a vote of $7,214, just from our capital reserve. So the fire department currently has, and that's where this vehicle was coming from, our capital already raised.
Yep.
So we have 128,601. So if you minus the 72, it would be 121 left in that capital for apparatus. So it was raised already for apparatus. We were approved at town meeting. I was just short.
Questions?
How's everybody looking at me?
Nope, I can, yeah,
I have a process question. We
Yes.
have the ability to, that's one of the funds that we can do without going back to town meeting because they've already approved it and it's in a capital account.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't have any question. I move we allocate the funds.
I think it would be appropriate for you to recuse yourself from this because you're on the fire department.
Yeah, sure.
I can wait to discussion, but Jerry, just outline this for me, and maybe this is where I always defer to Kevin because he seems to always have these answers. The town approved what for this truck? And we're $7,000 short of what the town approved, correct?
Yes, that was fitted.
Right. So what is the proper protocol on this one? Because I know we have to go to RFP over 5,000, right?
Yes.
Right, but what is that the select board can set, is it 10,000 that we can go under? We can be under, right, to
Capital
approve for
improvements.
capital? It's 10,000,
Yes.
right?
Yep,
That's all. I just want to make sure didn't get hotspot. So we can legally authorize him to spend up to another $10,000 without a town vote, correct?
correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that we authorize the chief to spend up to $10,000 or up to $9,999.
Yeah.
To purchase and outfit the rapid response vehicle.
And I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to authorize the chief, authorize Jerry and the chief to transfer up to $9,999 from the fire department capital reserve account, which would, for the purchase and outfitting of the rapid response vehicle. And we have a vote on that.
We have
Do I have a
first and
second? Do I have a second?
We're just looking for if
Well, you
anybody has
move
a comment.
move into
Any
discussion
comments?
and then vote, yeah.
Any other further comments? Okay. All in favor? All right.
And I'll
that's
just
four.
recuse myself.
Joe's
That's
recused.
comfortable with.
Yeah, if I may on that, if you don't mind, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead. Absolutely.
There's going to be times where individuals are going to interact where they know somebody. If Joe was, let's say, on this board and he was actually the fire chief requesting it, I think you were in your right to actually vote on this and do
Okay.
that. There's going to be many times people come here that you have interaction with, whether it's somebody in your neighborhood or somebody
Mhm.
like that. So I think you were okay
Okay.
on that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
whatever, I'm good with what the board's
Yeah,
comfortable with.
just in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was fine as it is, but I mean, we're a new board, so it's going to be a learning curve for
Mhm.
probably 5 to 6 months. But I think you were,
As long as you're not gaining anything.
you weren't gaining anything, correct?
Right, yeah,
Exactly.
that's
They
really
don't,
what
chief
it comes
doesn't let me
down
drive
to.
anything anyways.
Yeah.
I better get the first ride is all I'm saying.
I was just about to ask.
You can get in trouble.
So I think my concern with this is, and I do think that it's fair and valid, is that Joe is a paid member of the fire department. And not that he's benefiting in that way. And I would never, under any circumstances, think that your vote would change regardless, one way or the other. I don't want this board to ever be in a position where anyone could ever accuse anybody of, do you see what I'm saying?
I do, but let's go this way. Let's just say hypothetically, the chief wants to buy a new vehicle and he brings in 25 members from the department, right? To go to the town meeting. Are the cards invalid?
No, their cards aren't invalid.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, again, back to personal gain. There's no personal gain here. And that's
He can't
really,
vote on it.
right.
If he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
living in
yeah.
the town.
Yeah, that's really the point of it. And
Okay.
otherwise, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Thank
Uh,
you. for the
Yeah,
understanding.
thank you, chief. Appreciate it.
Hey,
And
Friday nights, buddy. We're gonna-
lights and sirens, everything. All right. Let's see, adding agenda items for future select board meetings. So I thoughts on how this is going to work moving forward. Yes, Rich.
I'm fine with any agenda being added as long as it's before it being posted to the public.
No, I concur with that.
So my question on this is, if there's something that a select board member would like to discuss in new business, how do we go about requesting that gets on the agenda?
You would have to call before it's posted to Jerry and request him to add it to the agenda.
Yeah, and so I know that last time we kind of discussed briefly that you work on the agendas like the Thursday before.
Yeah, but I think though, we want to maybe take a step back a little bit and what's agenda worthy that the board needs to actually discuss, right? And we're talking about like board, like policies of the town. We have projects that are coming up that we want to attack over the next year or two. or more or further. We have some projects that are already in play. So we have a number of items that, I'll say that the members of the team of people that I'll say do the work for the town, all of Jerry's folks, as well as we have some committees that bring us information in that feeds into that. In the planning board, we've got to watch what we actually add to the agenda as projects moving forward that doesn't overtax the number of folks that are actually working on it as well. I think we're talking about, doing like a little group select board meeting to get kind of put together a roadmap, so to speak, of projects that are ongoing as well as new projects that we actually want to move forward with. And I think those become, for the majority of things, unless there's an emergent issue, those become what our agenda items are over the course of the year.
Right. So I'm talking about emergent issues.
Okay.
And so I think that I want to know the.
Can I ask give me an example.
Yeah. So for example, like
That helps the discussion.
we lack a solar ordinance for the town. And I know in the past we talked about how, the planning board decides what sort of ordinance work we want to work on. But, I'm of the opinion that while I think the planning board does a really good job, the planning board's an unelected body. So I think it is a lot of power to give an unelected official sole discretion over what the policy agendas are for land use and stuff like that during the year. So I think that if the select board had the opportunity to say, let's discuss the solar ordinance and see if it's something we want to ask the planning board to focus on a little bit rather than be reactive, or whether it's something that, you go down the road of seeing maybe there's a third party that you utilize to help develop something like that, or look at other towns. So I just want to make sure, because on a lot of other boards I'm on, you can bring new business on from the floor. But I understand that we don't want to do that because we want we don't want someone to say, I'm not going to go to the select board meeting because there's nothing of interest to me. And then all of a sudden I bring up this thing up from the floor and someone from the public goes, well, I would have gone if I had that opportunity. So I just want to make sure that there's an opportunity for select board members to bring things to the agenda, just like there are the committees and boards, but follow the proper recourse.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So what we want to try to avoid, when I got your email, I instantly thought, okay, I got 3 agenda items from you. If I've gotten 3 from him, 3 from Rich, 3 from Heather, and 3 from Josh.
I've never sent an agenda.
No,
So
I'm just saying, it just needs to be, because how are we going to discuss all 3 at that meeting? So really what we need to decide is how do we decide what gets, there has to be a process and a procedure to get things on the agenda, because if I get even 4 items from 2 of you, and that's 8 different items on the agenda, I won't know what to do with
So
that.
what's the process right now if the planning board, the conservation commission, and the historic commission all submit 2 or 3 agenda items in the same week? What's that
That'd be a good
process?
question, because that hasn't
I
happened.
think it's a priority. It's prioritizing of the planning board. We should, like we mentioned, and what we've been following in this town for many years, is the planning board kind of sets their agenda. Now, let's say, for example, the only example I can think of off the top of my head, you get, let's say, 5 people that live in 5 different parts of this town that come in and say, they come to a public meeting and they say, hey, listen, we got a serious issue with our roads and we would like it addressed this year. We add it to the agenda and it goes forward. But as a select board member, we shouldn't be the ones pushing that agenda. Not that I'm saying that you are. It should be a collaboration from people from town of who your constituents is or something like that. It shouldn't be anything that could be like, hey, I'm really good friends with the chief. I want to bring up that we need to get a new hydro boat or something of that nature and things like that. That shouldn't transpire. I mean, if you want an ordinance, it should really kind of start in a public setting of requesting something because we've had no requests from anybody.
I mean, we've heard requests from, I've heard requests from constituents. So is the better way to say, well, can you all 5 come to the next meeting?
You'll learn.
And have 3
Yes.
minutes to talk? Because to me, that kind of seems like it's putting the select board always in a reactive position that we're the elected officials, but we have no discretion over which way policy goes. We have to wait for you all to come
Which is
during.
the opposite of what I was always told.
We actually we actually set policy.
Right.
Right, and that's what I mean, but so you're saying we set policy, but we can't introduce the topic of discussion.
Well, we
for
can
policy.
introduce the topic.
And
of
that's what I was
discussion.
wanted to figure out how to put that on.
Like I
the-
said, historically, we have not done that.
Right, and I'm just talking about moving, like looking forward, not saying that we don't have to do everything the same way in the past.
Historically,
We're
we
evolving.
don't typically interject with boards and say, hey, by the way, I'll use Lois because she isn't the thing. We want the historic commission to start doing this.
Isn't that what happened with the last resource protection though?
I have no idea what, no, not
So
from
like,
this
I mean,
board.
there was definitely downward discussion from this board about involve, go this way, go that way.
Once
separate
it
process.
got to us, we talked into discussion
Right,
about
so
what.
what
the
I want to
ordinance
talk about is how to
provides.
bring things to this body and not just always rely on it coming from different corners of the town, whether a volunteer board or individuals.
And that's why we're gonna
as
have that
elected
meeting with
officials.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it sounded like that was kind of an unknown time. And so I was thinking when we have, one thing on new business, this could be an opportunity to introduce
So
a
the
discussion
thing-
like what we're having right now
So,
anyways.
the thing, again, back to, you
Hours.
mentioned, a third party, to bring a third party in, that person or people need to be hired.
So this
Right,
is just an
so-
example of something I would want to discuss in an agenda item, but now we're getting into the details of the
Well,
example I
so
was asked to
can-
provide. So I'm trying to figure out how we can bring this to the meeting to actually
So
discuss.
I disagree with the two of you. I think it's appropriate for us as the elected officials to bring policy issues to Jerry to put on the agenda. I think if we get to if there's a situation where there's too many,
What's that?
I don't see how that's policy.
Land use policy, like the
The
resource.
land use policy is not, that should go to the board.
But you're
That's
asking
planning.
us to task the board
Right.
to go.
That's what the
and
Which,
do
which
that.
select boards in every town do. They task their planning board with tasks to do.
We have limited resources on this board. They have something. If there was an emergent thing that needed to be, that we should say, hey, stop what you're doing. We've had this issue come
Right,
up.
but it sounds like our current status is planning board, you decide what's most important to you as individuals, and then we as a select board will reactively say,
That's-
sure,
No,
go
I
for it.
I don't agree with that. They're replying to what is being brought via codes and what the people and what is happening in the town. For
And
example,
what's happening and what
And
George
what's
said was
Washington-
that
or
he's
excuse me, not
got
Washington,
two
right.
potential solar farm.
That we can,
That are-
that the permit's guaranteed awarded for $50.
And
Okay.
so I agree with what Joe's saying. And I don't want to talk about a specific thing, but I do agree that this is something that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
I think Jerry wants to talk, Joe.
So George right now and John Talbot are talking about solar cell towers and that sort of stuff. And they're having that little summit on June 14th to talk about how they want to bring that forward. So
Yeah, and so what I'm asking about is like how we bring things to new business to help establish priorities, understanding that we have limited time, limited resources, part-time employees, and saying if we're investing a lot of time and energy through both the employees that are paid and the volunteer positions, maybe we should have some prioritization put in place and that the
So-
board might be able to provide some guidance on.
First-
yeah,
what
but the
we
fact of the
find
matter is, Joe,
is important.
anybody can bring something and add it to the agenda from this board.
Right, and that's,
That's fact. So if you said to Jerry, it might not be on next week. It
right,
might be on the fourth week. You can bring something. We would then, if need be, task, if we thought it was an emergent situation, we could do that.
so when you say
But-
we, thinking it's an
As the
emergent
board.
situation,
The
right,
board.
so
If it
I'm
was
just
an-
trying to get on the agenda with an
Well,
item.
That's what I just said. Like,
So,
you
like-
can request that at any time.
Which I submitted last time, but I just want to make sure that's the
I
proper
think
channel.
you submit to Jerry, Jerry
Takes-
prioritizes and puts them
Right.
on the agenda when there's space.
Correct.
Yeah, because I'm not
because-
saying I should get the floor every meeting because I had an idea. That's not what I'm trying to get at.
But then the important part is, the bigger thing is we need the priorities that are being
It-
worked already
But-
on the planning board, be able to even just say, hey, we want this, because you can't have 5 number ones.
So that is
Yeah,
done
I
by us,
understand how
that
to
is
make
done by
priorities.
us saying, Jerry, here's a priority, here's something we want you to address. He brings it to George, George brings it to John, and then that's our role. That's it.
Yeah, and so then there's no
So-
hand holding on, please follow this process for making X, Y, and Z. This is saying the select board thinks that this is a priority based off of these emergent issues, and we would encourage you to utilize your time more for this than other things. So like if the town wanted a new policy on how long a dog leash has to be, I think it's more important to look at how our solar development goes versus that, rather than waiting at the end of the year and saying, thanks for the dog leash policy. We could say upfront, let's invest more time in policies that are emergent and are important. And, we were all elected to bring forth policies that we hear from the community. And that's what I'm just trying to figure out the best way to facilitate those discussions.
I think a perfect example of this is how we've had that resident that's come multiple times to talk about the fireworks ordinance. And
She's
that
come
that's been
Once.
bumped and bumped because the priority had been resource protection and some of the other ordinances that they were dealing with. And so I think that's a very clear example of what Joe is trying to articulate. That fireworks ordinance would be akin to the dog leash ordinance
Well,
versus
first and
solar and
foremost,
resource
though,
protection.
the board needs to decide whether or not they want to adopt a fire. We just don't put a fireworks ordinance if somebody says, hey, we want a fireworks ordinance.
Right, I was just
Right,
using
and
that
that's
as
the
an
same thing with the
example.
solar
saying
thing.
we should have
We
a
need to-
discussion.
That's why we would have to be informed from the planning board, I would think, to say, hey, we're really having a hard time with this solar. We need to focus on this. We've had a lot of issues with
So it sounds
this.
like what you're saying is the policy decision comes from the planning board.
I didn't say the policy comes from the planning board.
But you're saying we can entertain.
No, I don't want to
addressing
interject.
something.
There's two different things between entertaining and interjecting to a board.
But doesn't
and
the
saying-
planning board work at the discretion of the community and of the select board? So I think it's
Absolutely.
100% appropriate for a select board to set a policy objective and ask the planning board to administer that.
I agree if it's an emergency situation.
Well, I think that it's in any situation, that's where our job comes in. Because it
Well,
seems like
I
what you're
get
saying
that,
is
but
that
what
if
if-
you
like,
want
what
to
if we
introduce
did
a
have the
policy,
leash?
you're better off
Yeah.
joining the
But what if
planning
we
board
did have
and
the
getting
leash issue?
elected on the select board.
What if we did have the leash?
Well, can you
issue?
address that? Like, it seems like you're saying, if I want to address solar policy, it'd be better to volunteer for the planning board and then bring it to the select board versus be on the select board and say, hey,
No.
get elected and say, hey,
I
let's
think
bring
you
it
should,
up.
I think we should be careful and realize that we work as a board and not our individual.
Right, but
That's what I would say we should be careful
what I
with.
want to do is figure out a way to propose a discussion on something that I'm hearing from
But that's
constituents.
what,
who are
I already
asking
answered
for
you.
this.
You would have Jerry add that to the,
And so
to the
what
board.
Jerry,
Then
going
you're
back to
saying
what
it's a
Jerry was
priority
saying
as to
is
whether
that
it
if
gets
Joe
talked
says
about or not.
three,
If we talk
Joe
about it and
says
we
three,
say,
and I
that's
say
an emergent.
three, we're delegating to Jerry at that point to prioritize the agenda of the items where he sees fit. Is that accurate?
Yeah, then who do I pick? You
well,
know,
that's just it. That's why you should have like a,
You know,
that's why we talked about having something that's not in a formal setting like this, quote unquote workshop, where somebody would facilitate that workshop and say what typically
Exactly.
transpires in
Because
situations. like this.
then you're gonna get a view of everything that's on everybody's plate at that point.
At the same time, if you introduce an agenda item and then the discussion begins and someone says, we don't think that's important, the majority of the board doesn't find that important, I move that we don't prioritize this or ask the planning board to work on it. That's where you're crafting the
Back up
decision.
again, back up again. You're saying if you would introduce something and the board says, hey, we're not prioritizing that?
If
or
you're
are you saying-
introducing an agenda item to discuss, something like this, so we're
If
discussing
you
the
put it on the
concept.
thing, we're gonna discuss it and then we will prioritize it.
Right, so that's where I just want to make sure that the best way to introduce something in new
But
business
just
would be
imagine
by a.
every week if one of us gave Jerry like, hey, my neighbor was just talking to me about, I got neighbors all the time, say, hey, I don't like this, okay? And I'd say, well, that's fine. I understand
I
that.
think an overflow of requests could be a bridge that gets crossed if it occurs, because it sounds like it hasn't occurred in the issue. If Jerry got 14 requests from us for this agenda item, I can understand saying,
The same could be
That's
said if
it.
Jerry had 20 people that, asked for an ordinance, We don't.
right, but I'm saying there's got to be some way for a select board member to get something onto the agenda.
So
to
would you
discuss.
prioritize right now solar farms over the affordable
So
housing?
this is where we're now discussing
That's what
the
I mean. I
merits
don't-
of something
I don't
that's not
understand,
on
like,
the agenda.
I know, but what we're telling you is if you add it to the agenda,
We're
we
gonna
can
have that
discuss it
discussion.
and we can have that discussion. But we keep going back and forth on that.
Right,
So,
so,
sorry.
so you.
no, that's
Jerry.
fine, that's fine. One way we could maybe do this is on every agenda, have a, just like our consent, agenda is, have, what do we want to discuss at the next meeting?
No,
You don't want to do that?
no, absolutely not.
And then, I'm just saying, then if somebody brings something up, as a board, you could discuss whether you want to discuss it at that.
If a board member wants to bring it up, we discuss it at some point.
Yeah.
There
bring it
has
to
to be,
Jerry's
there has
attention,
to be a way for you to prioritize it.
Right.
I mean, if there's an obvious emergency that needs to be discussed, then it gets priority. If it's something that is not emergent, then it's going to be lower on the priority for you to put on the agenda.
so
But I
there-
think
There you go.
anything that one of us wants to present deserves to be on the agenda at some point.
That is true.
And
But you gotta have, to talk about it from an educated standpoint, you need some context. So that comes back down to the priority and when it gets presented up to the
But
board.
the cold
Because us
conversation
having
doesn't
this-
have to happen.
The five
at
of
the
us
meeting.
having a discussion about solar is somewhat interesting, but, but it's not ours to make a decision. We're either gonna make a decision to say, hey, planning board, go look at this, with George and folks.
well, if
Or
George and
not.
John don't do that after tonight, then
What's that?
They're-
then I'm
they're
going
already-
to question their priority,
No,
right?
but-
So, I
Like, for
mean,
example, if
but
you brought it to the board, which is great, that's what I'm saying, like, you can add it, it's up to Jerry. Any select board member can add something for
Mhm.
discussion onto a board. But we should have it, if that's your intent, are you gonna be the one that's presenting
Presenting.
to the board to
Right.
educate them on why you would want that? Or are you gonna
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
or
Like,
would you
I
have
wouldn't-
somebody that's independent?
See,
That's where the issue
Right.
comes
See,
up.
Why would you need someone?
Because you
Well,
look
because-
like,
independent?
So this is why we need to have this, I'll call it the spitball session. So we're the board of directors of this town.
Yeah, I understand.
Jerry's our town manager. Everything goes through Jerry. We're just making the policy, we're allowing a policy to be put forth to the townspeople, but we're also trying to set the priorities of all the different projects that are going on in town.
So I understand everything
He's the
you're saying.
keeper of them. But in order for us to stay somewhat removed from the day-to-day operations, we can't be just, injecting ourselves into, again, back to bring your constituents here, have them sit here and say, the neighbors or whatever, or the solar farm, and say, we don't want the solar farm, we need some ordinances around it. And then that becomes a decision for us to prioritize with Jerry and his people. And then he's gonna come to us and say, I got 5 priorities, whatever the case may be.
so
Which
why
one
do
did-
why do the neighbors have to come in? Why can't three
I'm
people
saying
come
that-
in to me and I just say, hey,
just put it on the agenda.
well,
But
that's,
if you
but
put it on the
that's it.
agenda, right, you're right, they can. You can put it on the agenda. You're 100% right. Anybody can put.
I'd like to
anything on
hear
the
what
agenda.
Josh was trying to say.
And so I think we're going around in circles on this. I mean, my issue, but what I think we all agree on is that any one of us can send Jerry an email.
Mhm.
He will prioritize what's on there. I think it would be good for you to sort of make a list. Here are the agenda items that aren't on. And somebody could say, hey, that's a priority. We'd like you to discuss that at the next meeting. That way there's notice of what the other issues are. But I think we've already spent, if one of us wants to put something on, it should get on, no questions asked. We present the issue however we see fit.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's the responsibility of the person who puts something on the agenda to bring the reason as to why they want to talk about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, 100% on what both you gentlemen said. But what should transpire then, Jerry should be lining up. So if that, to me, Jerry would say, okay, well, we're going to have the planning board here on X night. The
Right.
chair will be here, and we can have this discussion of what you feel, and we can
Right.
say,
We're committing
right,
resources.
we're
at that
committing
point.
resources.
Yeah, so that's
But it shouldn't be.
that's why I want to put something on the
No.
agenda is because so everyone's talking as if I don't understand this. I understand we're committing resources and we have limited resources. We have a part-time planner, we have a volunteer board. So I'm saying with limited resources, maybe it's important for us to determine the best way that those limited resources are allocated. And as elected officials who are answering to constituents who have raised issues to us, I think it's our responsibility as the board of directors and of elected officials to say, these are concerns that I'm hearing, and I would like to have a discussion on it. Now, I'm not saying, George, go write a solar policy that says X, Y, and Z. I'm saying, I'm hearing that there's concern that there is no policy, and we would like that to be something that the board examines and addresses. They might come back and say, the board feels our current policy is adequate. And then we've addressed at least someone's concern. They might not like the answer, but we've addressed their concern. Or the board can come back and say, there's a really big need here, but we don't have the capacity, so we need help. Or, yeah, we can handle this and we'll make this our number one priority. Or, should this be our number one priority? Because we were also looking at that. And that's where we have those discussions. And I don't think it's inappropriate for the select board to ask the planning board to go after those sorts of things because we see it happen in every other select board, planning board situation across the area.
Joe, I agree with you, just for clarification here.
Yeah.
What I'm saying and what I was trying to get to, and I actually agree with Josh, I think we're all trying to say somewhat of the same thing. But what I'm saying, and that's why I asked you the question earlier, are you going to be the one presenting? Well, you really shouldn't. You should be the one on this side of the panel trying to be independent and just trying to think in the best for the town. See
Right,
what I'm
but
saying?
I'm representing the constituents who voted for me. And if they're asking me to bring
And you
this
would
to,
choose.
I can bring two.
So
This is a
I would
concern.
present the issue that was raised and say, this is something that
Right.
constituents asked to be addressed. I'm raising it to you.
Right.
Is this something that we should be addressing is this something we should ask Jerry to address with George, with Calvin, with the chief, with somebody?
Correct.
So,
But I don't think, like, let's say I want to build ballparks. I don't think I say, hey, guys, I've gotten 15, I don't know how many calls I've gotten on ballparks. I've gotten a lot of calls on ballparks, okay?
Yeah.
I don't think I should be the one saying, because it looks like I'm driving it, right? We have heard from nobody, and then I'm sitting up here giving a presentation on the ballparks. All I'm trying to caution is, you're not going to be the one
all you're presenting
presenting.
is, this is what people
This is the
want.
topic, let's
Here's-
bring in the planning board.
Should we
Correct.
address it with, should
Yeah.
Jerry address it with?
That's what I was
so-and-so?
trying to say.
That's-
That is exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at.
No, I know, but I think when I asked you earlier, you said I would be presenting it, correct?
I would be presenting the discussion topic.
That's it, though. But I was asking more like, who's going to be presenting to the board as like the expert in terms of why we need to create this issue?
That's.
Well, I mean, I don't think you need, so when you're an elected official, you don't even need expertise. If you're bringing something, I can write a letter to
I
my
asked you, what,
senator.
To do something without knowledge from somebody that, you know.
So what about in
that's-
Okay,
that's-
can pause,
But it's
hold
not a
on.
presentation, it's a,
Right.
here's what people
Right.
That's what
want.
I'm saying.
So like we've heard Jerry talk about the trash contract, right? And we got an email from Jerry this week
Mhm.
that was, giving us information about what other towns are doing regarding the trash contract. And
Yeah.
so if after getting that email and having Jerry through the budget process, bring up the trash contract, and I see that as a priority, right? I might send Jerry an email and say, I think that this is a priority that we should be addressing.
Well-
And then it gets on the agenda, I hope. And from what I'm saying, that's the appropriate way to do that.
Correct.
I think that is exactly what Joe is trying. We're new board members and we are
Yeah,
trying
but
to
you
do
don't have to be
things-
an expert in the
Right.
recycling policy of the world to bring
Okay,
that.
see, once again, we're
Discussion.
spinning, guys, I think we're all in agreement here.
Yeah.
Okay, the question was, were you gonna be the one presenting as like, this is my topic and I'm gonna present to the board as the.
That's not how I understood your question, so.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. That's why I
It's
asked you as
just-
far as, are you going to be the one presenting this to the board as far as like, you're gonna sit in that chair and say, hey, my name's Joe, and I wanna talk to you guys all about thing, and I wanna present, and these
No,
are
I'm
the
trying
facts
to
I
bring
feel.
an agenda.
What I'm saying is we bring it, the planning board comes in, and then you would say, hey, guys, these are my concerns, and this is what are you guys seeing in the field? What do you think?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna move, I think we've discussed this to death. I'm
I
gonna
agree.
ask to move the question.
I
Put this
agree.
on old business at a future meeting to see how things go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To keep this
Jerry,
as
are you
old business.
comfortable with the
I'm
outcome
second
of
that,
this conversation?
but all I would
Because
say
know
with
that you
that-
had
Jerry said
concerns.
spinning.
Is that he should be allowed, like, for example, if he wants to send Jerry an email tomorrow to say, I'd like this topic added, he should be afforded that. That's all I'm saying. I don't think we need to have discussion over that anymore.
No, I agree.
Okay.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because last time we talked about wanting to put things on the agenda. And so I emailed Jerry, said, here are a few things I'd like to discuss. And he said, maybe we should have a whole discussion as a whole as to, that's what this agenda item is, let's talk about how things go on the
So-
agenda.
No question, Joe, but what I was getting at is like, we were gonna put things on our agenda because we're gonna have like a workshop.
Mhm.
See what you maybe have feels
Yep.
through your constituents and why you ran, and maybe what have the ran for.
No.
We get them all on the board and let's address them and attack them and let's see what we can prioritize out of the year.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I think I have clarity, just email Jerry.
Just email Jerry.
So, all
You're comfortable with the outcome? Okay.
right, and
Makes
then
sense.
it's just, you mentioned trash for a second. I'm assuming you're gonna put that on our agenda when you're ready for us to see it. We don't need to request that, all right? So
I was
that's
just using
gonna
that
be,
as an
yeah,
example.
no,
Good example.
okay. It is a good example. Do we need to talk about anything else related to the subject, Jerry?
No, I'm all set.
Everybody's good? Okay. Managers report. I'll
Okay.
hand this over to you, Jerry.
Thank you. think this is why Lois is here. She saw her name on the agenda. So apparently, back in 2021, the board decided or voted or approved, however it was, to form a committee to look at the old town hall at Union Church. And to my knowledge, that was never done.
Mhm.
So Lois is
The committee was never formed?
never formed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, and I think Lois would really like that to take shape. So we're meeting with Lois, George and I, and the code enforcement, Alan, on the 16th, a week from today, to discuss how we move forward, the formation of this committee. And I just let you know, we're gonna put out applications to have folks
Great.
who are interested on that.
Fantastic.
That is
That'll be
awesome.
coming to you.
That'll help that
Lois-
along.
Lois and I will talk and try to get this ball rolling.
Okay.
It's long overdue, and so that's the only reason why I put that, just so you know it's coming.
You can't. And you can, the managers meeting.
I can if you ask me to come to the table.
I'm not sure on that, Lois, because we weren't on the, what's it called, but I'll let the chair handle that one.
Can I ask Jerry
You-
a question while you're deciding?
Go ahead,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it possible, I'm, because this happened in 2021, so I'm not sure. How, do you know how it was structured? Was it just a open-ended, we're gonna form a committee and that's how it stands? There was
Right.
never like a, we wanna have somebody that, meets these requirements, or it was just a,
Well, that would go out with the request when he should have like a
Right.
detail of like,
Of
maybe we
what-
need like
what
a
we're-
builder, maybe we need an architect.
that's what I'm wondering.
You'd want
If-
somebody with
Was that
knowledge.
something that was established, or was it just a vote to say, yes, we need this?
No, they want some sort of expertise, if we can get them.
And is that what your
Maybe a
meeting on
lawyer.
the 16th is going to address, is
Part of it. There's-
the
there's-
people at that table are going to decide what criteria they want to try to fill on that committee?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, we're gonna talk.
I just wondered if that was part of the vote, or if
I don't
that's
think it
what's
needs to be
coming.
part of the vote because it just, I mean, there needs to be a vision for where that old town hall goes and gets to. And
I just
so we
wondered if
can-
it was
so-
established in 21.
not to-
Okay,
Probably
that-
not.
No,
That
it
was
was
what I
more
was
of a
wondering.
general, I think there's enough, guys, there's been so much stuff, but if I could, my recollection, it was just a general that we recognize that a board is needed.
Mhm.
And so we could formalize this board as long as we can find qualified people to participate in this board. Like you just don't want Joe Blow, the homeowner that hangs, has got a revolving credit card at the Home Depot or something like that. They should be, because of how precious these buildings are and so forth, they should be pretty knowledgeable people.
Right, and it's not just, I mean, and no offense to the historic district, but commission, but it's no offense to them, but we need a wider audience to go look at. They're part of it. Other members in town need to be part of it to go put the whole picture together as to, and that's what this committee would be tasked with.
Maybe they don't have all the expertise, but if they're willing to go to training.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing
Right.
too, could get
I
them
just
on
wondered if
list.
that structure was already established, or if that meeting is
Yeah,
intended to establish that kind of structure. That was what my question was.
We're gonna talk about it all.
Okay.
we've had several meetings over the years about the buildings in particular, like not necessarily about historical buildings, but just buildings in general. And I think it was Mitch, don't quote me on that. Once we were under a town management, I think he appointed Calvin Bomier, and am I correct on that? As far as like the general overseer of these buildings.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what I was getting at is that there's been a lot. I think this was, as far as the Union Church goes, it's more of like for lack of better words, like a feasibility study. Like, for example, like, okay, we got this property, we got this building. What's the we need to repair it and things of that nature. But what is the future of this building? I
Right.
think is what we're looking to try to achieve with this. Where are we taking this? Are we just going to leave it here and just keep preserving it, or are we going to put it to use? We're going to add power to it, parking, whatever. It might probably just sit there. But that was kind of more of a.
Mhm.
But again, we've had so many meetings. Did we pull anything on that for the board so they could look at what was discussed in that?
No.
Yeah, because that's probably
Lois had sent some stuff that was.
just to add some. I remember there was an article in the paper, and that's really right? Does that sound about right? Wasn't there an article in the paper that Durham elected to do that? Jerry?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, without 2021, that was a couple of years ago, I don't really, but that's my mild recollection of it. Josh, you
Lois,
hear
do you
that?
have something quick?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it wasn't Lois that wants to set this committee up. It's the,
Board.
it
Well,
was
right.
the board
Mhm.
set it up.
Yeah, no.
And we are reminding you, the commission is reminding you that the board said they were gonna do it. And we've come to various people during turnover saying, when does this start? And it keeps being pushed off. So the most recent one was after this year's town meeting.
That's true.
That's what I
That is true.
reminded. So here we are.
No,
That's the
that's
first
fine.
thing. It wasn't
Yeah, it
Lois,
need-
it was the
That's correct.
commission.
That's correct.
It needs,
I'm a representative because I'm the chair.
yep, no, I agree. And that's, we do want this committee to move forward. It's time to do it. It's overdue.
But the other piece you need to know is this goes back to the prior town administrator. That's when the board started talking about
Mhm.
this
Yep.
and passed it. It was then moved again in November of 2021.
Right.
That's when it went in the paper, but the committee had already been in formation from when the previous town administrator was
Yeah.
here. So
Lois
it's
is correct.
been
The COVID
5
years
years.
is what transpired.
Kind of, yeah.
So that committee with Ruth and everything, that kind of, we did, again, don't hold me, there's been so many topics in here, but I do remember vaguely on that, because I believe Ruth was actually one of the ones that was the, well, she added it to the agenda, right? That's what
It
happens.
was on the agendas, I remember.
So I think what
See.
transpired, at least for the couple years, I'm not gonna go into the last couple of years, but the first couple of years after we did that, we got into these Zoom meetings, then we've had several turnovers, and it was just, unfortunately, we just ran out of bandwidth, kind of like you can to any board if you keep
Yeah.
piling on.
So I think we're gonna move forward then and get the board together and we'll move from there.
And you're going to present us. I don't think that any of us should be voting members on this board, but if there's a member ex officio, a non-voting member, I would be interested in that, to see the process and hear the discussion, because I think it's an important discussion.
I think the board's already enacted that we can develop a board. So it's really just putting out the information to try to acquire the bodies to
Right.
develop, and then us appointing them and then
We
putting
don't-
them to
right,
work.
We don't have to vote.
But
again.
somebody, and I don't think it's this board, it might be in tandem with you folks and Jerry, we need to develop, and maybe actually the board's gonna have to take back, we need to develop what we're gonna have this committee do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We just can't say, hey, let's develop so what are they gonna do? What do we want them to look at is what I'm asking.
The Union Church, what's the
Right.
plan for it?
Right, but are you looking for like a feasibility study, or are we looking for?
Well, there's
like-
some repairs that
Right.
need to be done, so are we,
So-
so we look at that.
But we don't need a board for that. I mean, what we need for that is because, again, Calvin is assigned now as the overseer of these buildings. He needs to examine, say, hey, we have a problem here. We need to get the appropriate people in bids. And the appropriate people may be people in charge of, or excuse me, expertise in historical buildings. Tell us what needs to be done. That needs to come to the board. And then the board would act on that, and maybe even have to take it to the town, depending on the value.
You got a couple buckets there. You got,
Right,
you got
there's a
the
few
emergent, got to keep it standing upright bucket, and then the other bucket, which is the future, what we're doing in the future, which is I'm assuming what this board will be doing. And some of the, sorry, Josh, one more thing. So some of the things I think the board will more than likely look at is, what are the emergent issues in comparison to what the long-range plan is? Because you may hold off on doing something to go and look at the long-range plan to maybe do it later, depending on how long you can wait. But I'll let the board decide that. That committee needs to think about it in a holistic standpoint. I don't think anybody wants to put money into something that might get changed later by what the committee decides. Right?
Right.
So
be fiscally responsible about how we keep it up and what the long range plan is. It's a mix. Go ahead, Josh.
So Rich was the only one on this board when that was enacted. I would not be opposed to you coming to us after your meeting on the 16th saying, here's what our idea is, and asking us to essentially vote on that issue again if we need to. Although I think it was general enough back then that we can limit it. But what's your scope? But I think Rich and Joe were correct. It's sort of, if you, in a nutshell, it's what are we going to do with this building? How are we going, what is our best option? Because we have to remember that while everyone wants it, we have to spend money on it. And how do we make this most cost effective for the town, the townspeople, and coming back with ideas.
And useful.
And the other thing, Lois sent an email inviting us to the meeting on the 18th. I can't go. But what I would be interested in, I think, is maybe not as frequent updates as we get from the planning board. And I think this might apply to all of the boards, but sort of an update every 6 weeks or so, what's going on, even if it's in an email form. It's hard for me to go out 2 or 3 nights a week with work, family, kid, and my wife who comes home at all hours of the night sometimes. I would be interested in that from all the boards.
Almost like a department head report.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd agree with that. But I just want, again, I don't want to skirt the issue of if there's something structurally currently going on with that building and we know about it, which it's been identified. I believe it's probably your responsibility to direct Calvin over there and get somebody over there to look at that so we don't have a major issue.
We have an obligation to keep that building
Absolutely.
in
That's my
in a
point.
usable condition. No matter what our personal feelings are or anything like that,
Right.
as of right now, it's our building and we have to keep it usable, safe, and essentially habitable. So I agree.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding, and I don't know, I'm new here too,
No problem.
that there was an estimate to replace some of the structural stuff for it.
We've done there's been many estimates. We've done roofs, we've done new porches, we've done new foundation walls, some back work outside
I
with
think we
roof.
now need.
But what I'm saying, look, if I may, this is your report. If the board's okay, can I ask Lois a question?
Yep.
Lois, this issue with the sills, right? That's, to my knowledge, like that's been deteriorating over the years and years, and it hasn't, we've never really gotten I remember 6 or 7 years ago, there was a big write-up you were here. Not a write-up, but there was a gentleman that used to do all the historical buildings for us and look at them and tell us what needed to be done. I can't think of his name right now. He was,
If I may.
yeah, go ahead.
Christopher Kloss, I
There
believe,
you
is
go.
the person that you're talking about.
Correct.
He worked for Maine Preservation in Yarmouth, which is a private, nonprofit organization, as opposed to Maine Preservation Commission in Augusta, who also has looked at our buildings and had some feedback on it. So there's 2 different organizations that have had input. Christopher Kloss came, you paid him
Correct.
to
He gave us a
do the
detailed outline.
Union Church and to do the West Durham Methodist Church. And he did a full evaluation. And it was 2015 was the first one, 2017 for the West Durham Methodist Church was the follow-up one. But I don't know whether the Union Church had a follow-up in 2017 or not. I assume it did. I don't have a copy of it. But it was, so now it was 8 years ago. And he went and looked at everything, like the structural beams against the roof, everything to the underpinnings of the building. So, yes.
There was one done on that building, and I'm not sure, we do have a newer email system. Sometimes I can find this sometime, but there was documents in those early years that produced basically, like, for lack of better words, a punch list of what some of these buildings needed in his professional opinion, not speculation or anything, him as in his professional opinion. Okay. We did over the years for that particular building, we have done some work. It's not, I mean, there's, that building's been, we've done the roof, we've done the steeple back in the 80s, we've done all kinds of things we've done. But, Lois, we've refixed, the foundation was falling in the back, correct?
I don't know how deep you want to go diving into.
Well, I remember we had
Let me
bids.
just
Yeah,
say-
not too much deep.
Let me just say very quickly
Yeah.
that the foundation was shored up. It was not done to standard.
Yeah.
There's a Department of Interior standard for redoing a building that's on the registry, the National Registry. The repairs that have been made, including the walkway up to the stairway to go in, the foundation, none of that meets the standards of the Department of the Interior. It was done halfway.
That's not the way we're
And
gonna use
so, it definitely wasn't. But it was done,
I love school
thought-
teachers.
I
that are
will
able to
say
pivot so quick.
thoughtlessly. It wasn't put together as a long-term plan. It was done piecemeal. And so as a result, what you've got is a building now that needs to be repaired and brought up to the Department of Interior
So-
standards. But it's good, honestly, that's gonna take long. Because, but as for the sill has a hole that you can
Right.
stick your arm in.
Right.
So.
Grade stuff's not gonna get it done, right?
Hmm?
Little grade stuff that won't work?
No,
Okay,
yeah,
just checking.
no, yeah, I tried that wood filler, doesn't work.
Okay.
I have a question. When this committee is formed, would it be appropriate for that committee to submit to Jerry, I think that's the process, to go to the capital improvement?
It would be considered for capital improvement,
It-
once, they
And then it could
decide
go through a
what the
ranking
old,
and.
what the whole plan would be. And again, back to the whole plan, put the whole plan together. What are we gonna use the building for? Right? Because we're gonna get to the part that says, all right, we're gonna use the building for this and we're gonna go bring it up to historical standards while we're doing that. So that's the whole holistic picture that I'd like the board to see, because then you're going to upgrade it and make it usable to the public. And right now, it's not in a state where it's very usable. It's an old historic building that is going to become a museum piece like it is, with some fresh coat of paint. And I think we probably want more. I think the town wants more out of, it's a piece
Yeah.
of real estate.
That's what I'm
It's
asking.
important
is-
to us. And if we can reuse it somehow to make it a building that's used regularly by whoever in town needs it, it could be the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whoever, but it needs to be brought up to certain standards for that stuff to happen, as well as keeping it historic.
Right,
So
what I,
it's a big job.
why I'm asking my question is because I don't want to be in a situation like we were in at the last town meeting where we're trying to find an avenue to be able, I want that to go through a proper process
No,
for
it
the
needs
voters to be
That-
able to.
That's what this committee needs to do. They need to bring
Okay, so
through
that's
Jerry.
what I'm asking, is that gonna be one of the tasks to get to that point where they would be able to present for
Committee's
ranking?
not really formed, so you have plenty of input that you can lend with what you want Jerry and whoever's gonna be, chairing this board and committee. I mean, we can give them the directive of what we want to achieve, this committee to achieve. And you can certainly,
Yeah, I just want the voters to have the opportunity to
Nope, I agree.
speak on it at town meeting, because I think we did see at town meeting, people were in favor of trying to
Yeah,
save
no,
it
I
or
think
help
there's
or whatever, so I just wanna make sure the process
Yep.
gets to the point where it does get before the voters, if that's what the,
I think we just need to get out of the Band-Aid business. We need to recognize the building. We need to see the historical content of the
Yeah.
building. We need to formulate a plan, formulate repairs that are needed, present to the town and say, this building, to bring it to historical standards and the repairs that are required, is gonna cost $2.2 million.
Right.
Or, I know, Lois, or $100. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, right now, that's really the point I'm trying to make. I don't know. We don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, and I think with a plan, you lay out the details of
That's
you
right.
know, the investment you want to make commensurate with what it's going to provide the community.
Mhm.
So
That's a good
if
point.
it's just going to
Exactly.
be a museum piece, and you just need to make sure that
It
it's
doesn't fall
structural
in.
and doesn't
Right.
fall in, that's
Yeah.
very different than saying we want this to be a historical space that can be utilized by the community.
Exactly, and
Now
that's
you're
good.
talking ADA compliance, you're talking
Mhm.
power and heat and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I think when you
Restrooms,
have
yeah.
a plan, it
Yes,
helps
two hole won't
justify
do.
any expense you might bring to the community, saying this might cost $10,000 or $100,000 more, but this is what we're going to get out of it. You know,
That's a great
we
point.
don't have to double book Eureka in the town office.
That's a great point.
Okay.
I think the approach to it is almost like you're filling out a grant, you know, what do you got? What do you want it to be? What do you need?
Yeah.
You know, where are you going with
And
it?
if it's laid out correctly,
Except I think you need to get the estimates and
Yeah.
then come back and then
But you have to
break
have
it
that
out.
grant.
So
But I think the
Yeah.
biggest
Grant's gotta
accept,
have all of
I think the
that.
biggest accept is this should be an agenda item. It shouldn't be a manager. We got way past managers.
oh yeah, we did. That's all right. All
We
right.
did that.
We did that.
We did that. We did that.
Like, that's what I'm trying, like,
So-
we need to reel it in and get back to the agenda
Yeah.
because we've gotten way off
Okay.
course.
Then
Go ahead,
the only
Jerry.
other thing that I wanted to just let you know, and I'll remind you again, is that the Trek Across Maine is coming through town
Yeah.
on June 16th and 18th.
And Chief's all set?
We'll work with Chief to get that all set.
Okay.
So other than that, that's it. I don't have much.
Are they setting up in town? Like they
Yes, we have the
usually,
Eureka
same,
Center.
same as always,
Yep.
just a, okay.
Yep. So just be, just want our residents to be,
Yeah.
prepared for more traffic, and that's fine.
And it goes along Route 9 and 136, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll post a map. They run a map the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
So
great.
between
Put it
the
on the
bridge on
website.
125 and the event on 136,
Oh, it's
going to be slow getting through
Then if
town.
the Swamp Road
If
project
Swamp
goes
Road
up,
goes
yeah,
through,
there's all
yeah.
kinds
We
of
might as well
issues.
break ground on the
last year it
15.
didn't go up Route 9, it came up 136.
They-
Oh, they don't do route. Okay.
Not our job to worry about it.
No, it's not
Not
our
worrying
job.
about if they need to reroute their route.
This is all,
Not our job to
no,
worry
this is
about it.
all done through, this is all done through DOT. This is all
Yeah.
done through,
Yeah.
this has
Right.
nothing to do with us.
No,
They just want to use the read
Yeah.
setup there.
Yeah.
That's
Fire
fine.
station.
Just the rest area,
Rest
that's
stops.
all we're offering.
You got anything else, Jerry?
No, that's it for that.
All right, any other questions for Jerry? All right.
I do have a question. I don't know if it's for Jerry or if it's for you. It's about the consent agenda. So we got the meeting minutes. And when is the appropriate time to address if we believe that there's a change that needs to be made? Is it prior to the meeting or is that something that we bring up in the meeting?
Like if we want to change,
Yeah.
I was just about to ask
If I
if we
just
need,
read through it and I saw that I thought something read incorrectly or something.
I was just gonna
missing.
ask when I got there was if anybody had any change to
It
the
would be,
consent agenda.
to answer your question, it'd be better for you to bring it up too, so it can be corrected.
Yeah.
And therefore, we would be allowed, if it was found to be that your correction was warranted and needed,
Yes.
then we could act and vote on it. If we come to the conclusion tonight, we could still act and vote on it, but we need to recognize that there's an issue with it.
So reply to the email of that
You should
is
just reply to
originally
Jerry.
sent. Okay, and
Yeah.
say
Not
that.
the whole board.
Not the
yeah.
whole board, because
Okay.
then you open up discussion.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So consent agenda, I was thinking that we need to just break this up because I wasn't at the meeting last time for the approval of minutes.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, all opposed, and I'm gonna recuse myself. What's that?
Vote?
Oh, actually, yeah, but it's just,
Oh,
I
were you not here?
was not here.
Oh, yeah, I got you now. I'm
All
sorry.
right,
forgot.
yeah. That's fine, okay? So that carries 4-0.
You abstained.
I'm abstained, yep.
I need to borrow your pen.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right,
I'll show you.
all right, upcoming meetings and town news. We have select board meeting on 5/9/2023. It's today, and 5/23.
And we're meeting at 6:00 at the,
We're going 6 o'clock down at the
Public Works.
Public Works Department, yep. DPW. That's always a fun tour. Okay, do we need an executive session tonight, Jerry?
No, sir.
Okay,
Okay, one more question real quick, just
Go ahead.
before we adjourn.
Yeah.
So, when we had been coming to my last two meetings,
Yeah.
we had printouts of what was sent to us through email. I'm completely fine not having the printout to save paper. I just want to know what the process is going to be going forward, because if we're not going to print stuff out, I'm going to bring my laptop with me because I do like to refer to stuff as we're. So I don't care which way we do it. I just want it to stay consistent. That's all I'm asking for.
That's up to the board.
Okay.
What they would like. In the past, we would just get typically an agenda, and if there was something that came up, but that's
I'm
if you
totally
want-
fine bringing my laptop. I did, like I said, I didn't bring my laptop tonight because the last 2 meetings we had this stuff in front of us, so I didn't bring it, but I will bring it
We
if
try
I.
to be conscious of the budget.
Okay, like I said, I just wanted to know
I'm just-
what we're gonna do going forward, and I'll bring my laptop from now on.
But I prefer, honestly, I prefer them in front of me in writing. Yeah, I like them on paper.
Okay, but we're all agreeing that we're
Yeah.
not gonna have them on paper, and I should bring my laptop. Yes?
I didn't hear that. I was just, I didn't know we were taking an official thing.
Yeah, I don't think we have an official vote. I think,
just
Okay.
a whole is good.
Yeah.
Josh, you got anything on that one?
I don't have a personal laptop, so I won't be bringing one. I do have a tablet that's about 8 years old, 6 years
So if
old.
that's the case, you almost have to print them.
No, I'm fine, because
You're
I look
fine.
at them. If I have questions, I'm not gonna hesitate.
photographic memory.
I'm not gonna hesitate to email ahead of time, so.
Yeah,
Like I did the last meeting.
absolutely.
So,
It's not uncommon for boards and councils to have
Laptops
town
here.
issued.
Ooh, here we go.
Yeah, that's not what I was asking for whatsoever.
See how that-
With all the printing that goes on,
if there's extra ones, when we got the new ones, if there's any left over, that, but not by.
I don't have the patience for slow computers.
Do I have a
I'd
motion to
rather
adjourn?
just
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in
Am I
favor?
signing this?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you, everybody.
very good.
Good meeting. Ah,
That's short.
I did wonder sometimes
You
about
did all
like,
right.
if
I made
I use
Okay,
my
so-
personal computers for
Rich second.
this stuff,
We
and
offline?
it's like, you know,
I know we're not offline yet, just,
I'm using my
what's that?
like personal Word and stuff like that if I'm working
Can
on
you give me
documents or
1
reading.
second?
Go, what do you need? Sorry,
What's the
Please.
law?
Oh, this.
What's
Yeah.
the law, right?
that was unanimous vote.
Hey, Lois, now that we're out of this, may I ask, do
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
you,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
we've adjourned.
I know.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
not asking anything personal questions.
Okay.
I'm asking a question. Was there any, as of recent that you guys have done, like to get bids on how to fix that? I just can't recall.
Thank you.